This is a bonus episode of Making Sunday Happen, Hiring the Right Team for Sunday with Holly Tate. Let's do it.
This is the definitive podcast for helping you plan, create, and execute dynamic worship experiences at your church. Useful, practical content in the areas of production, worship, communications, first impressions, and more. This is Making Sunday Happen.
Hey guys, welcome to this bonus episode of Making Sunday Happen. This week I welcome my friend Holly Tate. Holly is the Vice President of Business Development at Vanderbluemen, and they have just launched a sister company called Christian Teams, a ministry dedicated to helping you find the right supporting staff members for your church or your organization. They help staff and recruit your support roles. I'll talk with Holly today about how to recruit the right talent for your church, how to hire during a pandemic, what to look for on a resume and what are some red flags, the difference in furloughs and layoffs, and more. It's an episode about helping you craft the right team for your worship experiences and for your church. So I hope you'll get a lot of great information today. We'll dive right into my interview with Holly right after this. Here we go.
Introducing monthly custom media plans from 1230 Media. Affordable, no-contract monthly plans for custom graphic design and video for your church. Custom sermon series designs, announcement graphics, social media graphics, sermon bumpers and trailers, promotional videos, countdowns, church announcement videos, and more. Choose between custom graphics, custom video, or graphics and video plans. Harness the power of a full creative team every month to serve your church or ministry, with plans starting at only $600 per month. Join hundreds of churches using 1230 Media to transform your worship experience. Get started today at 1230.media/pricing. That's 1230.media/pricing.
Hey guys, today I welcome my friend Holly Tate. Holly is the Vice President of Business Development, sounds so important, at Vanderbluemen. Holly, thanks so much for hanging out. Really appreciate you being here.
It is always good to hang out with you, Carl. I am so excited to be here today.
Awesome. Now, I wanted to chat with you because you guys just launched a new sister company to Vanderbluemen, which I'm super pumped about. So, tell us what Vanderbluemen does, and then tell us Christian Teams and kind of the difference in the two.
Yes. So, Vanderbluemen is an executive search firm that helps churches and Christian organizations find their executive staff. So we've been in existence for 10 years now. 2020 was in the middle of COVID, was our 10th birthday. I know, was our 10-year anniversary as a company. And so over the years, we've learned that there was a need for our same service, but just a little bit different for support level roles, right? Because there's some roles where you don't need a national executive search. Maybe that's, your IT coordinator or your event director or an associate pastor. I mean, it varies depending on your organization, and we'll dive into that today. But so 10 years of learning, we had beta tested a couple of different processes over the years to try to figure out what could work for our clients. And we took all of that and launched Christian Teams, which is our sister company. So it's a separate company, but powered by Vanderbloemen. And it's a virtual staffing solution for support roles at Christian organizations. So it's Vanderbluemen and Christian Teams.
So what are some of the things that maybe I've had to do in the past to find that support role that you guys at Christian Teams would take for me and do for me?
Yes. So, especially right now, Carl, with unemployment it was at 11%. Now I think we're hovering around 8% or so. You can definitely post a job on a job board. And there's so many these days. That's part of the problem. Is it's overwhelming. There's even within our Christian space, there's a lot of job boards out there, which it adds up. I mean, you're looking at probably, anywhere from $500 to $1,000 or more dollars you could spend just posting to job boards. And the issue right now is it's not that you're not going to get resumes. You're going to get a ton of resumes because unfortunately, a lot of organizations have had to go through layoffs or furloughs, or people are exhausted and they've just decided to move on from what they're doing. And so we're able to do the heavy lifting for our clients on the Christian team side and on the Vanderbluemen side. But for those support roles on the Christian team side, we're able to do a lot of that heavy lifting of sifting through those applicants and really discerning, okay, who really has the potential to be the right fit here, that the client should really spend time interviewing rather than having those phone interviews with folks that aren't qualified, and then that executive pastor or associate head of school feeling frustrated and like they're back to ground zero at the end of every phone interview. So, yeah.
So you guys are sifting through the gold. How do you know, or how do you guys determine what is a nugget, a person that a church needs to talk to? What does your sifting process look like?
Well, the beauty is that this is definitely an art and not a science. So every organization we work with is different, right? On many different levels. So first of all, because we're in the Christian space, theology is so important.
Yeah.
So all of our clients have different theological alignments. Maybe they're a part of a denomination, or maybe they're not. Maybe they're non-denominational, but they still have the theological DNA that makes them unique. Whether they're complementarian or egalitarian, whether they're more charismatic or more mainline, and everything in between. And so theology is a huge component of what we dive into on both the client side and the candidate side. Because that informs everything, right, Carl? I mean, you guys see that a lot with your clients from a worship perspective. Depending on your theological bend, your worship experience is going to be completely different from the church down the street.
Right.
And so we're able to really dive in theologically and understand both the client and the candidate, as well as, of course, the characteristics and experience that the client is looking for, to really make sure that the person's a right fit.
And I can set that with you. I can say, hey, we lean Southern Baptist, so we're going to look for people in this bent, and we also want people with more than a year experience, 5 years experience doing XYZ. I can set those parameters, and then you do the sifting for me. Is that how it works?
Exactly. Yeah, we spend a lot of time with the client on video. Phone. I was going to say over the phone, but it's really over video on the front end of our process to really ask those questions and do a deep dive to really understand where they fall theologically, culturally, like from a leadership perspective. Every organization has a different workplace culture. And then obviously the expertise and skills that they're looking for in this specific role.
So one of the first things that comes to mind is I'm a pastor, leader, and I might be thinking, yeah, right. I'd love to hire a team, but COVID has really, hit us big time. We've had to lay off people, things like that. So, and we were talking a little bit before we started recording about what churches are seeing, where giving's at. Do you want to talk about that? And maybe what would you tell me as a pastor that's like, there's no way I can hire right now?
Absolutely. So again, and I feel like a broken record, but it's so true that every church is facing their own unique season right now. So we have some clients who are kind of embarrassed because their giving has exploded during this time because they have an incredible culture of generosity. And, I've had conversations with pastors who are like, I don't want to talk about it because I know there are a lot of churches that are hurting, but we saw the best month of giving ever. And they're navigating that and are excited, but also afraid that won't keep up, right? And we're about to go into an election and into a fall where we have no idea what COVID's going to do this fall. So there's a lot of unknown, but there's churches that are experiencing all-time giving highs. Then there are a lot of churches that are severely hurting right now. And I don't want anybody to think that I'm saying that that they're not, because there are a lot of churches that are hurting right now. And so we're seeing that all over the map. Now, from a high level view, we did a survey of over 900 churches or Christian organizations, but most of them were churches that took PPP money in some capacity. They were a part of the Paycheck Protection Program under the CARES Act that happened over the summer. And what we learned through that of over 900 Christian organizations is that giving has for the majority of these organizations, has either maintained or increased. So I hope that that's an encouragement to pastors and church leaders that are listening. And if that's not you, I also want to encourage you that you're not alone. There are many churches out there that are hurting and have seen a decline. But I do think we have an opportunity here now more than ever to rethink our giving strategies. So one example would be, if you're out there and we have got to hire a communications director. Like, this is a necessary hire to take us into the future of ministry. We've got to have a communications director, or maybe it's an IT director, or whatever the title is, that person that can really help us think about how to migrate that online and offline worship experience into one experience. That's an opportunity to go to your congregation and tell a specific story and make a specific invitation for them to give to something that they can make a difference, a tangible difference in today. Whereas I think what we're used to in a lot of congregations is just relying on the rhythm of Sunday, waiting till the end of the year, seeing how year-end giving goes. Maybe we'll see an uptick around Easter. I think this is an opportunity for us to ask for specific things and make invitations for people in our congregation to come alongside us and help take our church into the future, whether that's from a staffing perspective, a technological perspective, a service or an outreach perspective. Rethink the way that you're inviting your congregation to come alongside you and participate in giving.
That's really good. Let me ask an obvious question here, and that is, why is it important that I not only have a great team, but I have the right people on the right seat on the bus?
Yeah. So to your point, we're seeing that you just asked me the question before. We're seeing a lot of churches think about reorganizing, because, maybe they had the director of first impressions that was super busy on the weekend because they were figuring out the parking lot volunteers and the hospitality team. And that role looks a lot different than it did a few months ago. And so a lot of churches are reorganizing their staff. It's important that church leaders not just put people in places that are open on the org chart, but that they put people in the right places on the org chart. Because we can all operate in a role that we're not necessarily the best at, or that we don't really love for a certain period of time. But there's going to be a time, if we're not in a role where we are thriving and we're not able to be our best, that does our organization a disservice, because there could be somebody in that role that's the best at that role. And so that's why it's important that we get the right people in the right seats on the bus. And so I think it's really important that church leaders, as you're thinking about reorganizing your staff, spend time asking your staff what they love to do. What do they feel called to? What are the unique gifts that God has given them? And how can you create new roles to be able to put them in the places where they're going to really thrive and provide the most value in their calling on your church staff? And of course, there's always going to be things that, no job is perfect. We're always going to, even though we're in ministry,
always have the other duties as assigned on our resume.
Exactly. And absolutely. And your attitude towards that sentence in your job description makes a huge difference. So I'm not saying that, but I am saying I think it's important that church leaders really spend time getting feedback from their team and figuring out where the best place for them on the staff is as you move forward.
Good. If I'm hiring a team for my church, give me some things that I need to maybe be looking for, or maybe some red flags that, hey, if you see an applicant come in that's this, we're not even going to send it to you because we know that this is a red flag. Do you have anything like that?
Yeah. So the things that I would say, and this would not be, don't take these as hard rules, because again, everybody has a story, and your resume is just one part of us getting to know your story. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's really important, and why our service is so great, because we're able to really get to know the candidates really well and not just judge them from a piece of paper, right?
Right.
But one thing you can look for is their tenure at organizations. It's not always a bad thing if you're at a place for a year and another place for a year and a half, and then another place for 2 years. That's not always a bad thing, but I would dive in and ask some questions around that. Why do they seem to be job hopping a bit? That would be one thing that I would look for. Are they really clear on what their calling is and what their gift and skill set is as a person? Or are they still trying to figure that out? If there's job hopping involved, that might make me ask some questions and want to dive in a little bit more. Next thing is, in order for you to really get clear on a candidate's theology, that means you've got to get clear on your theology. We spend a lot of time with church leadership teams or boards or committees where, as we're asking them questions, we're uncovering that the board isn't even aligned on their theological values or beliefs. So that's really important that it's, Socrates said, know thyself. You as an organization have got to know yourself before you can find the right fit in a role. So that's kind of turning the question a bit onto the church to do some homework first. But theology is going to be a huge component of that. And you can see some of that in a resume, like the name of the church, right? Can also often give us hints at where they align theologically. Mm-hmm. And then geography. We're definitely in a more transient world, especially now. But cultural geography makes a huge difference. Can somebody from New York City migrate to, Alabama? Well, are they going to thrive there? Maybe, or maybe we need to spend some time and ask some questions because those are very different cultures. So those are kind of three different areas that you might spend some time thinking about as you're looking at resumes in this season.
Excellent. What if I'm a candidate? What if I'm not a church or organization? How can you help me as a candidate find a good fit with a church or organization?
Yeah, well, the price tag is great. It's free for any candidate to always peruse the opportunities that we have on our website. So any candidate can go and check it out. You can filter by lots of different characteristics on our websites from our open roles that are there. So I would encourage anybody who's feeling like God might be calling them to their next thing to check out those opportunities. You can apply for them right there on our website. But if you still have questions or you just want to talk to somebody, you can always reach out to our team. Our recruiting team is amazing, and they spend their days just really caring for and praying with candidates because we're often the first call that candidates make, because it's tough when you're in ministry. Your best friend is in your small group that's also your colleague. And if you feel like the Lord is calling you to something else, that can be an awkward and uncomfortable conversation. And so our team is here to help you navigate that.
That's a very good point. What's your URL? ChristianTeams.com?
ChristianTeams.com. Yep, that's right.
Good. All right. A couple more quick questions for you as we wrap up today. So I recently saw a webinar that you did. I think it was a member of your team about the difference in furloughs and layoffs. So can you give us any difference or insight into the difference of each? If I'm a church that's wrestling with furlough and layoff, or maybe even bringing those folks back, maybe I'm at that point now. Can you give me some insight into that?
Yeah. So a lot of people think that furloughs and layoffs are synonymous, but they are different. And the most important thing is that you're really clear with your staff on the front end when you're having to make these decisions, because it can get really confusing if you're telling somebody they're furloughed, but actually you mean they're laid off. And it's all about expectations. So furlough is basically saying, hey, we've had to cut back our staff because of finances or the downturn in the economy or whatever it might be. It doesn't have anything to do with their performance. They're having to make a organizational decision and start the furlough process. But it usually has a timeline. So for example, you might say, we're furloughing X number of staff for the next 3 months because we need to see how the economy goes or how giving goes. And if at the end of those 3 months we meet these benchmarks, we would love to start bringing these people back. That's an example of a furlough. Whereas a layoff means the termination happens at that time. And so it's more permanent. And so that's why it's important that you understand and spend time with the difference between the two, and you're clear on the front end, because it's really, you also need to be fair to the candidate, because if they love working there and they feel like there's a chance that they could come back to work in 3 months, they might wait around if they're able to financially and kind of see what happens. But if you don't have any intention of bringing them back, it's probably better to go ahead and lay them off. I definitely am not an HR expert, so I would encourage you to make sure that you are seeking, when you're making decisions like this, you should have an HR professional and also a lawyer help you navigate these things. These are big, serious topics that you need to get right as a leader. So make sure you spend time really getting this right as you're going through these really difficult processes with your staff.
Good. All right, last question for you. If I'm a church and I'm worried about cash flow, so if I'm coming out of COVID, but if I'm still nervous about, well, I don't know if we should hire because I don't know what the next 3 months look like. We need to get past the election. We need to get past to see if COVID, whatever. What would you tell me? What would you encourage me to do coming out of this season?
Yeah, so I'll touch on again what I said a few minutes ago. I think it's a great opportunity for you to go to donors or specific people in your organization that maybe have even approached you and said, hey, we would love to give. How can we help? It's a great opportunity for you to go to them and say, this is how you can help. We need to make this hire or use finances in this way. Can you come alongside us? So
Good.
I already said that, but I think it's a great opportunity. So I'm going to say it again. The second thing is I would look at your org chart. Where can you cut the fat? Both in your org chart and in your budget. I'm sure at this stage, every leader has looked at their budget probably over and over a million times. But it's always good to, on a monthly basis, if not more regularly, to say, where are we spending that is not moving the needle? Where we can cut back to be able to steward those finances in a different way. And if there are roles on your team that for example, an online pastor, that communications director, that IT director, that are going to move the needle forward and helping your church migrate into the future in a more effective way, that's where I would re-budget or refocus your time, your energy, your resources, rather than just keep things the way they've always been done. So that's what I would encourage leaders to think about is, what are those roles that are going to really move us into the future? And you've got to do whatever you can to make that happen now as we're coming out of this season to set you up for success as we move forward for effective ministry.
Where can I find you guys? How can I get started with you?
Sure. Well, you can always email me. I'm Holly at Vanderbluemen.com. So you can email me or go to Vanderbluemen.com or ChristianTeams.com. And we'd love to help any church or ministry that we can.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time, Holly.
Thanks, Carl, for all you guys and 1230 Media are doing for the church. It's so important as we help churches navigate this, what you said, new normal. So thank you for all you guys do as well.
Did you know social media posts with video have 48% more views? Videos gain 1,200% more shares on social media than text and images combined. And viewers retain 95% of a message when they watch it in a video compared to 10% when reading it in text. Introducing Sermon Clipper, the powerful new service that produces powerful social media clips from your weekly message. You can maximize the impact of your sermons, reach more people, and repurpose your content for greater impact. Take your worship experience beyond Sunday with Sermon Clipper. Learn more at sermonclipper.com.
The show notes for this episode are available now at makingsundayhappen.com.
Well, hey guys, thanks so much for hanging out on this bonus episode of the podcast. We love you guys. We are on the journey with you. If you need us, feel free to reach out anytime. Our website is 1230.media. We'll continue to create incredible worship experiences for your church this week. I'll see you next time.
Making Sunday Happen is a production of the ministry of 1230 Media. For show notes, archive episodes, and more free resources for your church, visit makingsundayhappen.com.